I think we should kick off. We're past the appointed time, so thank you for those who are able to join us, and others will probably pick it up on our recording of our website in the near future. I'll hand over to you, Sue Ellen.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining us for our last safety webinar for 2023. I hope everyone has their morning coffees ready to go. So please note that we will be recording this webinar, and a link to the webinar will be sent out to everyone that has attended. So this month, we actually have a number of topics to cover, with a focus on automotives, cars, and road safety. Gary will be answering questions such as, can higher imposed speed limits improve safety? Can you put a Christmas tree on the roof of your car? And are self-driving cars too polite? After which he'll be discussing electric car chargers and how they're powered. He'll be discussing presents, which contain lithium-ion batteries, the call for a ban on engineered stone, and waste disposal of dangerous goods. Okay, over to you, Gary.
Thank you very much. We can have the next slide. Thanks, Sue Ellen. Before we get into the topics today, it's a farewell and a congratulations to Katie Weber of our team, who just left us this week on to exciting new career for herself in the emergency services area as a safety role. And so whilst we're all sad to see Katie leave us, we're really excited for her. For what she's going to do and bring to other organisations. So all the very best from the whole Safety Action team and clients and friends to Katie Weber. Andrea was unavailable to join us this morning. She was going to give us an update on her presentation at the World Safety Conference in Sydney last week, but also to provide an outline of some of the key things that she learnt and came across. So what I can tell you is that the World Safety Conference is only held every 2 years, and so this year it's the first time I can recall it coming to Australia, and Andrea spoke on collaborative robots. And so what Andrea indicated to me is that there's clearly an increasing trend in the World Congress and the interest around safety about the interaction with collaborative robots, and I guess artificial intelligence as well as part of that. So we'll have more from Andrea at a later date if we can. So let's look at today's key topics, if you like. And I pose the question, could higher speed limits improve safety? So I came across an article in a motoring section on the web where a journalist suggested maybe higher speed limits would actually improve safety in Australia. And one of the key things that the journalist pointed out was, of the approximately 1,200 people tragically killed on the roads in Australia last year, only 152 of those occurred on the 110 km/h speed limit roads. And so prima facie suggesting, gee, maybe the higher speed limit roads are safer. I'm not sure if this is a strong argument, and our article in our newsletter provides a bit more statistics and data on this. But the main argument that most people put forward in this area is boredom and fatigue. When you have very low speed limits and yet you feel and everyone knows the road is straight and level, wide verges, and quite safe, and you feel like this is too slow. This is, and we all feel this occasionally, not on every road, but on some in particular. And so this is the argument for high speed limits. However, the journalist did acknowledge, if we were going to do this, like some other countries, 130 kilometres an hour, or I don't think anyone's advocating the German autobahns, selected roads, where they have unlimited speed limits. But the journalist did recognise if we go down this route to higher speed limits, whatever that may be, that we would need improved driver behaviour, and that'll mean improved driver training, I suspect. So irrespective of whatever happens, all I suggest is for everyone a bit of extra care and a bit of extra courtesy on the roads during the busy holiday season. We'd like to see you all back with your family and friends next year. So I've got a lot to go through, so bear with me if we go through fairly quickly today, Sue Ellen. So I was amused by this information. It was a question posed by one of our readers. Can you carry a Christmas tree on the roof of your car? And of course, I don't know if you've seen it. Some of these hang right out the front and right out the back. If you're lucky enough to have a tall ceiling in your home, you can have a really big Christmas tree. So the short answer is yes, you can, subject to complying with the relevant road laws, which I'll just briefly outline. So yes, you can. So number one, it has to be properly secured to your vehicle. In other words, it can't just slip off or fall off as you're driving along. Your vehicle needs to remain stable. And I think for most cars that would be true. But if you had a very, very small car with a very light suspension and like a monstrous tree, then your car maybe become unstable. So for most of us, we'll be okay with the Christmas trees we're going to have in the home. And then the third and final point is the protrusions around the vehicle. So let's have a quick look. So, and this will be true of not only Christmas trees, but any loads you may put on racks, tents, canoes that you might put on your vehicles in the holiday season. So no load is to protrude more than 1.2 metres in front of your vehicle. So in front of the bumper bar, if you like. So that's the limit, up to 1.2 metres in the front. On either side of your car, it's 15 centimetres on either side, and the total width of the vehicle and load is never to exceed 2.5 metres. This is true of all vehicles on the road. So trucks, utes, whatever. So 2.5 metres is the limit. And people have to get special permits. And we see this occasionally with semi-trailers carrying very large loads. They've got a permit and either police escort or other escort to safely get them down the road without interfering with oncoming traffic. So 15 centimetres either side, but the total width not to exceed 2.5 metres. Now at the rear of the vehicle, shortest answer is if it's more than 1.2 metres, beyond the rear of the vehicle, you have to have a red flag and a red light at night. Now, yesterday I saw a vehicle with a load out the back and it had a bright yellow flag out the back. I believe the regulations say red flag, but I don't think anyone will complain that you've got a brighter orange flag, which I think has greater visibility. And the bit there is it's not to exceed 60% of your wheelbase. All you've got to do is measure the distance between your wheels and 0.6 of that multiplied by 0.6, and that's how far it could extend. And if it is more than 1.2, the red flag. So another interesting one, and maybe it's my sense of humour, but also my interest in road safety, particularly coming into the holiday season. We have a lot more people travelling and traffic and people travelling further than they normally do. So, you know, it may be into areas they're unfamiliar with. So I think that's why road safety is more important at this time of year. But as I said, maybe it's my sense of humour. I looked with interest with the rollout of autonomous vehicles, particularly overseas. So it's not happening in Australia just yet. So in the US, I came across these, they call them robo-taxis. And one of the key firms doing it is GM, and they're called the GM Cruise taxis, which are no driver in them, robo-taxis. And particularly at night, they allow under their permit more of these robo-taxis out onto the road. Wow. So in various parts of California. So San Francisco was noted as one, also Austin, Texas. But apparently when they come to an uncontrolled intersection, they're too polite. And so they all stop coming in from different directions, and they're not sure who should go first or when. And because they've had so many of these robo-taxis allowed out on the streets at night, they come behind the next one and they stop and they're too polite. They won't go around it. And so they've built up and they've had traffic jams. That's a fairly benign problem in terms of road safety, but annoying. So they've had to deal with this. But the other one I found interesting is that the fire brigade in California indicated that more than once a robo-taxi had gone into a fire scene and started to run over their fire hoses. because there was no formal stop sign. Because when the emergency service arrived, they haven't got time for all that. They just immediately stop their trucks and go into fight a fire. But a robo-taxi was not programmed, I'm sure they are now, to recognise emergency vehicles, particularly lights, flashing lights, etc. And they just wanted to drive through the scene. Another one was a tree had come down on the road and they put danger tape out. Once again, the programming hadn't actually allowed for, they're looking for road signs. So they're looking for speed signs, stop signs, traffic lights, and it drove through the danger tape into where they, and at least 2 of the vehicles did that, drove into through danger tape. So what this is telling us is that there's a lot more development yet for these autonomous vehicles to become really safe. We think we've mapped it all out on a desk in an office and all the circumstances, but these early automotive autonomous vehicles are finding new situations that planners hadn't thought of. And an unfortunate was is the back in September, the permit for the GM Cruise taxis was withdrawn in California. A car on the left-hand side of a robo-taxi struck a pedestrian. So the autonomous vehicle didn't, the other vehicle did. And the pedestrian entered a crossing against a red light. So the pedestrian was in the wrong, got struck by another vehicle, but the pedestrian flew in front of the robo-taxi. The robo-taxi came to a stop, but then its programming said you must now get off the road. So it proceeded to just go to the side, the verge of the road, but dragged the injured person, I think 7 metres. So they never foresaw this. And I don't think they have sensors under the car to know it's even doing this. To be fair, it might have been you or I could have dragged the same pedestrian. You might not have known and have gone to the side. So this just tells us we've got a long way to go yet. I love the idea, and I think autonomous vehicles are probably in most situations safer than you or I. They're going to react quicker, be more alert most of the time, but there are programming gaps that'll come up. So
I don't think I'll feel safe in a robo-taxi just yet.
No, I want a steering wheel and I want the brake. Another interesting one, and sometimes these may be unfair, but somebody in Northern Territory put up on a website and he filmed it. Here's an image here showing it. This is an electric car charging station with a diesel generator beside it. The diesel generator is running. You can't hear or see this here because it's just a photo, but in the video the motorist took is showing that diesel is powering electric chargers out in the outback, and for some reason it was running, and he said but no one was charging their vehicle. However, to be fair, so here's the background. The NRMA said they're rolling out around a pilot program around Australia for remote areas with no power supply. This is also, which is not shown here, got a canopy with solar cells, and it's got a battery. So it's primarily going to be run off solar cells and battery, but as a backup for surety of somebody rolling up. And for example, it could be a week when it's just cloudy days for a whole week. The generator is a backup. And if I was driving an electric car into the outback, I would like the idea that there's a diesel generator to give me assurance of power. So yes, it looks a bit weird when we're trying to go green, but I think for a surety for the moment, that's the sort of thing we need. So thanks. So lithium batteries. So coming at this time of year, lots of presents, particularly if you've got children or grandchildren, or sometimes for grown-ups. So at home, store your batteries in a cool place. Overheating is one of the issues. So not near the windows and where they're going to get direct sunlight on them. Where you're going to charge your batteries, make sure it's not near a doorway, particularly if it is the only exit from that room. You may be trapped because you've seen probably on the internet some of the images of lithium battery fires. They're very intense. So they happen fairly quickly and they have runaway reactions. So put them probably at the back of the room so people can safely get out. So that's one thing. And if your equipment, if the item looks damaged or the leads and connectors anyway damaged, just don't charge it. Be fussy. And if you do, make sure you've got it in a safe place, maybe even outside. And they suggest make sure you've got a place where you can turn the power off, because if it's overheating, you're not going to go near it.
Yeah.
But you don't want it to burn your house down. So have a switch remote from that you can turn the power off. So that may be maybe a power board feeding the item so you can turn off the power. So at work, that's not enough what I've just told you. You need instructions in the SDS, safety data sheet. Smart chargers, Andrew, I think this is Andrea's article, and she said to me, what are smart chargers? And I said, Andrea, it's your article. So what I understand, smart chargers are actually not only battery chargers, they tend to be for larger commercial operations, but they monitor the temperature of the batteries and shut down charging if they're starting to overheat.
Yeah.
So most of the charging problems are overheating of your batteries. So that's what the smart charger is. You and I at home probably not likely to have one until they just become normal in all of our chargers that we buy domestically. I'm sure progressively they'll be built into it. But at the moment, you'd have to buy a commercial unit to do that. So and include battery fires in your emergency plans for your business. So particularly if you're a business and you've got a charger underneath the building, it's going to threaten other maybe exits, other vehicles. So you want to think of location of fire services, fire hose, extinguishers, etc. So think of that. So thanks, Alan. The Australian Institute of Health and Safety, I just call them the Safety Institute because I remember it was old SIA. It was easier to say, but that's okay. That's just me, old Gary, grumbling about complex acronyms. They've joined the call to ban engineered stone. So we're starting to hear that we know that engineered stone has a higher silica content than natural granites and other stones. But what we're also hearing is that the alternatives are not totally safe either. So even natural stone, when people are grinding and there's a lot of dust, are also suffering the silica disease. So yes, we've got to look at what we do with engineered stone. But I don't know about you, but I don't want to go back to Laminex kitchen bench tops. Yeah. So stone, natural stone or stone looking to me is a great hard surface, great to keep clean, easy to keep clean and look good. So we'll monitor these developments moving forward, but the suggestion is a ban on it is not the answer unless you know what you're actually going to put in your kitchens moving forward. And if they're no safer, maybe we've got to learn to just manage the dust from these better for the young tradies that tragically being affected by this. This is another topic Andrea was going to speak to this morning, so I'll just be very, very quick. But it was nice what I heard from Andrea at a recent safety group meeting, Southern Safety Group, as I recall. A number of the businesses were reporting difficulties in getting rid of the containers, their chemical empty waste containers. Right. So this is not necessarily getting rid of waste chemicals, it's actually the containers. So apparently a lot of the recycle firms and firms engaged to come and collect the empty chemical containers don't want to come for one or two. So they want you to build up a stock.
Right.
So, and that stock might be quite large. So now businesses may have a very large stock but of empty containers, and they're waiting for the firm to think, oh, here's a commercial load now, I'll bother to come. But unfortunately, under the dangerous goods regulations, empty containers are treated as full by the fire brigade.
Yeah, right.
So unfortunately, this could affect your manifest. It could affect, therefore, some of the controls. So we just thought we'd mention, you may be experiencing this if you have a large stock of chemicals on your site, particularly if they're designated dangerous goods or hazardous substances. This is something I think as a business and a community we're going to have to work our way through so that businesses can have frequent enough removal so this doesn't become a problem. So this is something that surprised me, that's just starting to grow around the community, that firms don't want to come for just a handful of containers. Now, another one, our most popular safety course that we run in Safety Action, and probably been the most popular for over a decade, is our Safety Leadership, 2-day Safety Leadership course. And we call this our foundation level course because we do have others that extend into even more into human behaviour and safety culture, but this one introduces it as well. So we've got our next course coming up just after Christmas. It sounds a long way away, but 21 and 22 February. But you put Christmas holidays in between and all the other fun and interest between now, before Christmas and after, you'll barely have time to think about it. So we've got a special offer, so you can think about it now, book it now before Christmas. So if you book it before we close for the Christmas holidays, an extra special deal, $650 plus GST per person. Our standard fee for this is $1,500 per person. So this is an exceptional deal. Think about your team, think about yourself, think about career development and professional development for you and your team. This is, in my view, is an excellent one to kick the year off for next year, early in the year. So all you got to do is phone or email us and we'll book you in, lock you in. Just a couple of things before we wrap up on this morning's session. There's a new Australian standard out. We've circulated a fact sheet to our regular newsletter and retainer clients. So the key thing is just a couple of things I'd like to point out for you. Number one, SIA Global, who actually puts out all the Australian standards, is a non-government commercial business. And so many people think this is an arm of government, and therefore these standards have some higher imposition that you must follow them. So what Australian standards do is they provide guidance on best practice. And generally, for the vast majority of Australian standards, they are not referenced in legislation and therefore provide guidance on best practice, something you and I in your business should follow in all normal circumstances, but you are not legally compelled to do so, particularly if you've actually got safety systems in-house that offer a better solution for you and your business, more practical. So if something is more practical but still delivers the necessary level of safety and compliance, then you're entitled to do so. So assessing rack damage, just so that you understand, if it's within the tolerance, it's called green. So let's go red, yellow, green, our traditional risk levels of from high, medium, low. The standard says if the damage measures more than twice the stated tolerance of bending or buckling of a piece of the racking, it's a yellow, and you should plan and act on that within a reasonable period of time. But it says if it exceeds, sorry, I've got a wrong digit in there. It's meant to be more than 2. So if it's less than 2 tolerance, it's yellow. And if it's greater than times 2 the tolerance, so instead of 5 mil, if it's more than 10 mil, then it's in the red, and you should unload that piece of racking and have it fixed immediately. But the bit that's of this standard that's caused confusion has been the rack inspections, and the new standard now is now split rack inspections into what they call regular informal inspections, and it says in the guidance usually done by the rack users. So in your warehouse or logistics centre, you would train your team that use the warehouse, either forklift drivers or other team members, to maybe monthly or 2 monthly inspect the racking. So they're called informal inspections done by the rack users. And part B is the annual, they call formal inspections, and they say they should only be performed, these inspections, annually, at least annually, the standard says, by competent persons. And so the racking firms are listed as one of those competent sources. So they're happy. So they think, this is us. And then some of them have been going out to our clients and telling them, you can't do your annual inspections anymore. We have to do it. And that's not true. It's nice for them to do it. And I can tell you most businesses like to have an independent firm do an annual inspection of their racking. So it's fairly normal, but it is not a legal requirement, and it's not absolutely even what the standard says. So you could train your team up. It could be your maintenance team, your engineering team, or it could be your key supervisors. They could be trained adequately and be classed as a competent person. So who actually determines who's competent? The business determines whether you're competent to do that inspection, not somebody else coming in to tell you that you are or are not. So I just thought I'd help with that little bit of confusion around the racking standard that's out for those that have storage and racking. And just finally, Katie and Steve of our office have finally completed the compilation of the data and analysis for our annual, biannual, I think these days, benchmarking of safety performance. And so the image here is the cover of the book. The participants on the benchmarking survey will be getting their copies of this booklet next week. Just to give you a bit of a teaser for it, and I'm hoping if your company did not participate in this, we'd like you to with the next one. But here's what you've probably heard of the term TRIFR, which is the total recordable injury frequency rate. They call it TRIFR.
TRIFR.
So it's not the accurate number, but it's our latest benchmark shows it's above 20 at the moment. More people will be familiar with the lost time injury rate, LTIs, so they call them, and that's about 10 at the moment. And we also benchmark how many safety people do you have in your business. And for a long time, the long-term trend has been about one safety person per 100 employees. So if you've got 200 employees, on average, we'd expect there to be 2 safety people on average. If you're higher risk, you'll have higher level. If you're very low risk, like pure office-based, you might not have 2 for that number. So our benchmarking also looked at what are some of the initiatives that not every company does, but some do. And Steve and Katie compared that, the key activities, to those that have better performance. So just briefly, the things that tend to work when your managers and leaders are trained in safety leadership. So I'll come back to our special deal that I mentioned before, is one of the factors. The companies that do this have actually generally performed better. Companies where the new managers and executives are briefed on workplace health and safety tend to perform better. Companies that conduct periodic safety, climate and wellbeing surveys tend to perform better than average. And companies that have non-negotiable or golden safety rules and portray that to their team and reinforce them regularly tend to perform better in safety. There's a lot more in the benchmarking report, a lot more. There's just a couple of little teaser bits. Think about this if your organisation didn't participate with us in this year's survey. On whether we run it next year or the year after, I'm not sure, but if there's enough demand, we'll run it next year. So that's all we've got for this session. You know, we like to try and keep it short and sharp. Hopefully there's something in what we've just come up with which have been of interest to you. Been lovely seeing everyone and participating in our webinars this year and enjoying them either live or picking them up recorded. And I'll hand back to Sue Ellen.
Well, thank you very much for everyone that's joined us today. Have a lovely Christmas, a safe Christmas, and a good new year. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Thanks, Sue Ellen, for all your help as well. Thanks again, everyone.